women's spaces are enhanced. No woman should abuse of women should be reduced to their very minimum. We do not pledge that we can remove everything, but we try as much as possible to ensure that we do not have violence, gender-based violence. Our objective is zero tolerance towards gender-based violence. Nobody should be violated for any reason. No woman should suffer violence for any reason. We must respect their space. We must respect their rights. And so our commitment is unwavering. Our commitment is there. And I can tell you, our dear guests and our dear listeners, that we are committed as a party on the women's struggle. And so today, we can say yes, the theme is transparent and some form of gains. We would want to make sure that women continue to make their own contribution, and we support a framework, an environment which allows them to participate. Of course, there are challenges that deny some women to participate. There could be around sexual reproductive health, around issues of menstrual hygiene, the vulnerability. In religious circles, women are believed to be a weaker sex, so they need some more support, some extra support. While I do not subscribe so much to different religious sects, but I know that certainly enhancement to equalize and bring opportunities, because ours is equality, to make sure that we are all human beings. We respect that women's rights are critical at this time, and will continue to engage and create the spaces where women can engage. Thank you so much for God and my country. Join them in commemorating the International Women's Day, a day which is used to reflect, but also to celebrate the achievements of the women global liberation movements, but also the national liberation movements. And so we historically, if you are to assess how the global women movement started, it was based on very critical and important things. And among the things that the women were struggling for was equality, was human rights, and other levels of struggles, economic participation, religious rights, and so on. The exclusion of women in many spaces across the world is what brought about the global women movement and different national women movements across the world. And I can tell you, we celebrate many women for their contribution in these struggles. There are so many, I cannot name all of them, but I'll name just a few who have contributed, who have made a contribution, both in Uganda and across Africa and then the whole world. And there are quite many. I will name just a few and then make comments on whether or not we are making progress in as far as the advancing the women movement is concerned, and what are the remedies thereafter. I'll talk about a little bit about them. Importantly to note is that there are women who participated in the struggle, and women who have made contribution. For me, women like Mama Teresa, women who offered themselves to provide homage, to provide charity, to guide society in a manner which has left a record and left something in the hearts of human beings and humanity. And those women are very great. We have women such as Mama Winnie Kizela Mandela, the South African First Lady, of course, now passed on. Those women who contributed to the colonial struggles like Mama Winnie. We have Gracia Marcel, very great women who during the anti-colonialist struggles laid down their lives and their families to support their husbands. Some of them supported the struggle when there was no man available to support the struggles. We had Mama Miria Kalule Obote in Uganda, who supported the struggle through the husband, Dr. Paulo Milton Obote. We have the women such as Rhoda Kalema, among the first legislators and ministers in this country. Women who laid down their lives to champion causes. There are quite many women who have done as many things as possible. But if you look at the contemporary women in our generation, in the contemporary times, women who have proven that they go beyond and they go an extra mile, determined to make changes in society. We have women such as Cecilia Ogwal, may her soul rest in peace, a woman who stood so tall at a time when No man was speaking. She once said she was in the trenches struggling. We have women such as Salam Musumba, women such as Miriam Matembe, women such as Winnie Byanyima, women, I'm talking first of all at the national level, women who have laid down their lives, the Ingrid Turinawes, the Doreen Nyanjuras, women who are and are still participating in struggles, who are still participating in governance. In where I come from, in Teso, you have great women like Ali Salaso, women who stood out, stood so tall, women like Angeline Osege, Tota Doa, women who have championed education in Teso sub-region, and many other great women from that sub-region that have shown that they have the capacity to determine the affairs of society. We of course have now the contemporary, still we have in East Africa, President Suluhu from Tanzania. She has done her best. The level at which Tanzania is developing is at a very high level. We have different powerful women in this country. We have the Vice President of Uganda, Major Retired Jessica Lupepel. We have the Speaker also coming from Teso, and many other women, irrespective of the challenges that are there, but they have walked so tall, they have walked so high to be able to determine affairs in this country. And I want to commend the different women's struggles. The women, for example, in Soroti University, who defended the land rights. They used their power. They undressed because they wanted to secure their land rights. The women in Amuru, during the days of land issues in Amuru, the women who decided to champion their causes. So there are many women, and women have always stood so tall, especially at a time when no man is speaking, when there is a vacuum. Women have stood up. When there are injustices, women have stood up. They have stood the test of time. They have challenged systems. They have created possibilities, and there are quite a number of them. I've just talked about the political, but there are women in the religious sector, women who have done whatever it takes, women in the cultural arena, women, the Nabagereka, the Akaliite in Teso, different women who have made a huge contribution to this country, and I commend women. And so today we are using this day to be able to speak to the issues, to reflect. It's not just a celebration. What are we celebrating? We need to reflect and see how we can have continuous improvement. The Japanese theorem of Gemba Kaizen, continuous improvement. We need to have continuous improvement in as far as the issues of the women are concerned. I can tell you that while it is true that we are celebrating the Women's Day, there are things which are not yet answered. We still have maternal mortality. The report shows that 189 deaths out of every 100,000 women that are giving birth is still unfortunate that we can still have maternal mortality is still at that level. We should keep it almost at zero. These are issues for us to discuss. We still have women who are physically abused. The report suggests about 56 to 60% of women aged between 15 to 49 have experienced some form of abuse, whether physical, psychological, sexually. Those abuses are still ongoing, and these are issues for us to reflect on how we can improve them. Issues of spaces and places where women should also be able to engage, and these women need to engage across the board. They need to be offered equal opportunity. And so we are still evaluating that in the situation like this, are those things being addressed? Are the rights of the women, the women participating in governance issues, do they have the same opportunity that the men could have? Let's take an example in that event where we saw Ingrid Turinawe her boobs being squeezed by a male counterpart. It's unfortunate. Where women are demonstrating and they are being harassed is unacceptable in this 21st century. And so many other women who want to participate politically, but if they are being harassed, then it threatens the space of engagement. And so sometimes they retire to others. But I want to thank those that are championing. So for us, as Democratic Front, we are to stand with the women. We stand with the women's struggles. They have been so much instrumental in the national liberation struggle and continue to do certain things uniquely, women who are doing a lot of work, a lot of innovations around business. The most enterprising people in this country are women. The most innovative and creative women in this country who have done gigantic and gigantic things. These things that are unique in their own nature, and we want to thank them across the board. And for us as a party, we still stand, Pascal, we still stand with the women, and make sure that in all our policies, our policy engagement is very clear, that will always try as much as possible to create a leveled platform for women to participate. As a party, the Women's League is an open space. It is created by in our constitution. No woman is prohibited to participate in those spaces. We try as much as possible to help women participate in those spaces. We try as much as possible to support our policy framework. Our legal policy and institutional framework actually is at all times cognizant of the fact that women must be involved. So for example, in our neck, where we have different leadership, you find that over 50% are women. The deputy president from Northern Uganda is a woman. We have so many women, but having different positions, and that already shows you that our framework of thinking is not to deny any woman opportunity, but it is rather to enhance those opportunities to participate. We have supported women candidates, female candidates across the country. We had so many of them at MP level, at local government, LC5, many candidates at LC5. We had Wakiso, we had Butambala, we had many women of valor who have participated in the DF and have always been available to participate. So our position, our policy, it is a time to reflect whether or not we should be celebrating this day. I think for me, like I said, we have come a long way as a country and as a global village. We have come a long way in as far as advancement of women's rights are concerned. There are still, that's what I was saying, there are still issues around gender-based violence. There are still those issues around sexual abuse. They are, and I have talked about them. But it is a moment for reflection. It is a moment for engagement. And today I can tell you we are standing with the women. Even those who feel like they shouldn't celebrate Women's Day because they do not have the joy, they do not have the means even to celebrate. They have nothing to celebrate about. Their lives are so miserable. The suffering women. We talked about the women who have been on the streets vending and vending food and doing different small little enterprises to make their families survive. Now that they are out of the streets, now in not only just Kampala but in Mbale and Soroti and other cities in Uganda, many women have been chased off the street, but they continue to engage. And so such a woman who cannot have space to trade, how can we have affirmative action to give women who cannot rent expensive spaces for business, create spaces where all women can engage, where women can be able to do business in convenient places which have accessories, places which have social amenities. Some of them have children. The children are along the streets. They trade together with the children. The access to toilets, access to hygiene. And these are things that we keep talking about. So we at the DF will want to make sure that we explore every opportunity to provide spaces and places where women can engage in trade without any threat. And so these spaces must be affordable. These spaces must be available for all women to trade, and affirmative action to say, okay, if a woman is trading, maybe they can pay some 10 or 20,000 in a month to be able to engage and trade, because women are the foundation of this nation. They are the gatekeepers of this nation. We need the women, and our commitment is that such spaces, the planners and different individuals, we must be deliberate about equalizing an opportunity for women to engage in terms of trade. The kind of businesses that we know women engage in include restaurants, and we need spaces where they can be able to do that, not just on the streets where they trade, yes, but no access to protection from sunlight, from rain, and name all the dignity of a woman. And so as a country, we need to rethink. That's why we say we use this opportunity to champion Today we are using this opportunity to champion the women's agenda, to champion the equality, in terms of trade, the economic rights. We cannot just build only big infrastructure, dams, and big roads without considering spaces for trade. Every human being must be given an opportunity to trade in a space which is befitting, with dignity, with respect. And so we need these spaces for the women to be able to trade. Even if they are local markets, we must provide spaces where women can trade in a more dignified way. We can no longer look at it as an issue which we can ignore, but we need to create space for women to trade. We need to create safe spaces for them to be able to do different type of businesses. And so our commitment. So some women are not celebrating, and there are still those who are not celebrating because they are still going through this inhuman suffering, this inhuman abuse of sexual abuse and so on. But again, when we talk about the rights of the sex workers, I think for me, we need to look at sex workers being there for a lot of time. From the times of the Bible, we have had Rahab, a prostitute, who supported the Israeli struggle, and she made a good contribution. And there are so many women who are doing sex work as a business. And so while I wouldn't want to condemn or support any, I would only want to say that those that are engaging in sex work, we must have them engage it in a befitting way, not in a manner where they have to keep running here and there, where they have to keep the abuse is too much. We need to create a space like any other business, and create space for the women. If that is the line of their business, we need to create an opportunity for them to have a more meaningful, more gainful sex work, but also have, even the men are there, I can tell you, who are engaging in sex work. They are called gigolos. So how come on one end the gigolos are protected, but the women are not protected? So for me, it is true, it's a moral issue, but again, we cannot hide ourselves, because people are trading in sex as a commodity. And if we hide our faces in the sand, saying that no, we don't need them, but they have been there, and we, the men, are the ones who are buying, we need to protect these women in there. And there's a global trend to that. In America and other spaces, sex work is protected. And why don't we offer that protection to them as a form of business, in a dignified way, not in a way that they stand in the streets in places which not very safe even for their customers. Once we gazette that this is a business that they can do, then we can begin to offer the legal policy and institutional framework which will allow them to trade in a more dignified way. I am not saying that these are things to joke around with, but all we are saying is that if it has been there for thousands and it has been outlawed for so long, our policy in the DF is to decolonize any form of laws, because it is in the penal code. Prostitution is in the penal code. But is it true that it has stopped? No, it's actually on the rise. And so what do we do? Is it working? Is the law working? Or we are just choosing to have it there? If we don't need it in the penal code, we must address it. If we need it, then we must have a conscious conversation and say, no, we don't need it to happen. But as far as I know, prostitution is not about to end. Sex work will always be there, either formally or informally, and we cannot continue to hide ourselves. We need to have a conversation around protecting individuals who are engaging in it. That's what I can say about the various forms of rights that we can support the women for. Again, informally, women are not treated equally with men, because we live in a patriarchal society, a society where both in all the religious institutions, where, for example, in Christianity, a man is the head of the household. I'm sure in Islam as well. So, and in culturally as well, our cultures, the head of the household is a man. And this conversation around our culture, our religious thinking, our laws, how they are fashioned currently, do not. Of course, discrimination is against the law, but in reality, the equality is still something that the women need to continue championing, and we are standing together with you in as far as championing it, because the reality of the matter, it is not equal. The spaces are not equal. This is why in some spaces, I think Women cannot preach the gospel openly, whether Islam or Christianity. There are spaces that are male dominant. I have not seen a woman bishop yet. I have not yet seen a sheikh who is a woman. I mean, these are realities that we are talking about. I have not yet seen a culture leader who is a woman in Uganda. Apart from them being wives or queens, whatever, I have not seen. So when we are talking about this realities of inequality, the realities are still there, that the women have not yet achieved completely the level of equality that we all desire in Uganda. And so we are still behind. In other countries in Europe and most Western countries, the women have achieved quite a milestone. As you may be aware, we have so many single mothers who are fending for their children, and the law seems to be silent. There's the rise in single families headed by women, so many abandoned children without husbands and without even care. And so, does it make it an equal platform? Of course not. The women are standing total and they are enduring all this. And you find women have really championed to raise children, to fend for their families. But for most of us, the men, we must be ashamed of ourselves because we have abandoned our role as well. So when you look at that inequality in family, that inequality in different spaces, we still have something to do in as far as advancing those rights are concerned. In terms of marriage, I come from a society where it is the man to marry the woman. But you know, it must be exchanged with property, cows and so on and so on. And it is believed that a woman is a property, one of the properties of a man. And so when we still have this kind of thinking, and a woman goes into a marriage knowing that I have secondary rights, they have secondary rights in as far as land is concerned. While it is true the women participate more, they use more of the land to till. But if you look at the reports, not more than 30% of the land is owned by the women. So it means that even in as far as ownership of land, which is a right anyway, these land rights, the bundle of rights, everybody should have access, including the women, should have access to own land so that they can be able to make critical decisions. There are decisions you cannot make when you're not the owner of the land. Most women are only witnesses in land sales transactions, whether buying or selling. They are only witnesses, and so they play an auxiliary role when it comes to land decisions in their families, whether husband or wife and spouse. So all these are conversations that we need to have around land rights, around whether or not we have achieved that milestone in equal access to land rights. These are conversations that the women movement need to focus on, and not just focus only on celebrating a day and dancing and enjoying the day with parties and so on. But we need to have a honest conversation around the land rights, around the sexual rights, around the so many rights that and equalities that you are raising, that the women we are still behind. I can tell you, we haven't yet reached the threshold. We are still below the bar. At about 60%, we are still below the bar.
How are we going to work on that so that we can come on the front page?
Of course, how do we work on it? We need to change our laws. I think for me, the advocacy should start from judicial activism, or legislative activism, parliamentary activism. We need to be able to push our members of parliament. And anyway, there are many women members of parliament, but I'm not yet seeing one who says, for me, I'm advancing the rights of the women. And if the one focuses on land rights, the other focuses on health and health rights. Others, they could separate themselves, and there's a whole Uganda Women Parliamentary Association. UOPA is there. I don't know what UOPA is doing, but UOPA should be able to champion these changes in the law